Evolve ensure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We are your hosts today, Raj and the other guy.
Hey.
The other guy.
I'm the other guy.
It was some pre-on-air stuff. Today's not Tuesday Trends. It is playoff prep and trade deadline extravaganza. We wanted to get ahead of the game in front of the 8-ball, all what other idioms you can come up with. But we wanted to start talking playoffs. I mean, it's the second half of the fantasy season. It's the second half of the actual season. We're, 2 months away from playoffs. We're 1 month away from, maybe a month and a half, away from your trade deadlines, most of them. And we want to start talking that kind of stuff. We got a channel up in the Discord for it. So if you guys are interested, you can get in the Discord. We can talk playoffs. We put up a poll on Twitter, Reddit. It's in the Discord. For everybody's different playoff structures. Everybody's is different. Everybody's at a different time, different length. We're also on Twitter at FHF Hockey. Zach, we got some injuries, bud.
Starting off real quick, TJ Brody, undisclosed. He did not play yesterday on Sunday. They're starting to get better up there in Toronto, especially on the defense. This one definitely a little bigger. Poopy Roops left the game on Sunday and did not return. Rupee Hintz has been playing very well this year. I mean, he is over a point per game this year. He has 44 points in 40 games. And I mean, he was just under a point per game last year. So, I mean, he has taken that, over a point per game step. So that's pretty big news, but he is out right now. We don't really have any real information on whether it's, a serious injury, not so serious. So we're kind of sitting around with a thumbs up or butts, kind of waiting to find out what's going on with Rupee Hintz.
Do you think it's about time that we're not surprised anymore that Rupee Hintz is doing well?
Oh, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
I couldn't tell. It seemed like, you're like, oh yeah, he was actually having a good season and that kind of stuff. It's
No, he's come a long way since, a couple of years ago. I mean, he was over a point per game back in 2020-21. But he only played 41 games.
So you got Sagan on line 1, Wyatt Johnston moves up to line 2, and your top 6 fills out with Robertson, Pavelski, Ben, and Marchment. So we'll see how long it lasts.
Wyatt Johnston has been playing pretty damn well this year too.
He's doing it.
For a rookie, I mean, he's not bad. He is, double-digit goals. It's not like he's lighting the lamp all over the place, but I mean, he's just under 15 minutes time on ice. I actually like Wyatt Johnston. He's been a streamable player.
He had a hell of a year in the OHL too. He led the OHL in points. He was fucking stellar. But anyway, let's move away from the Stars.
Next up, Marc-Andre Fleury. He's going to be away from the team for a few days to deal with a personal matter, but he is supposed to be meeting back up with the team on Tuesday, tomorrow, for their game against the Rangers. If he can't go, though, it will be Gustafsson taking the look. So we've talked about Gustafsson before. In the past week, he's been playing very well as of late. Honestly, even a little better than Fleury, to be completely honest with you. Just as far as strict, numbers go and save percentage and stuff like that. But yeah, so Fleury will be out. He did get that loss on Saturday and then immediately flew home to Montreal. Sticking with goalies, Pavel Francouz. He's actually this starting to be, starting to get some good vibes back here. He has been skating at practice, but he hasn't even seen any shots on net as of yet. So, I mean, it's looking like Pavel Francouz should be back sometime soon. So keep an eye on that. And they have a really good schedule coming up for the playoffs. So he might be a guy that you might be able to get for a couple games in the playoffs. He will be available. That's all I got for you. The bad vibes are not too deep today.
Couple storylines. Nicholas Backstrom, Tom Wilson have returned to play. I want to get your guys' opinion on this one. Nicholas Backstrom is your number one center with Connor Sherry and Alex Ovechkin. Connor Sherry still having he's on a heater. And a lot of his points are, assists, and they're all primary, most of them at least. And he's clicking with Ovechkin, clicking with Gustafsson. And now you add Backstrom to the fold on line one. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about Tom Wilson, who's on line two with Dylan Strome and Evgeny Kuznetsov. And I'll tie it in with the first power play unit, which you see Backstrom up there, and it moves Dylan Strome down. So taking all that in, who are we most interested in? Backstrom, Wilson. I guess Sherry's not on any power play unit. So let's go Tom Wilson versus Nicholas Backstrom first off. Raj, what do you think?
I'm much more interested in Backstrom. Unless it is a bang heavy league, obviously Wilson gains huge ground there because you're not getting that from Backstrom. But I mean, Kuznetsov and Ovechkin are fine, but Backstrom and Ovechkin is the thing, right? It just is the thing, and you'd assume if he's waited this long, he's going to come back good and ready. Ovechkin's playing great, and if he's going to be centering, the Ovechkin power play, which is his primary purpose in life, essentially, I'm super into Backstrom. He's going to give you assists and assists and assists, and not a ton of other things, but he gives you a buttload of assists usually. So I like it.
A lot more useful in points. Yeah, I'm with you there. What do you think, Zach? I know you got a hard on for Tom Wilson and his beautiful face, chiseled out of stone.
I gotta take Tom Wilson. I gotta take Tom Wilson. I was waiting, and I knew that Raj was going to take Backstrom, so I knew that I would get to be devil's advocate here, and I am not upset about it. I understand where you're coming from with the whole Backstrom Ovechkin thing, but Evgeny Kuznetsov is having a pretty decent year himself, and we like Dylan Strome. I think that is a big step up. As where this time last week they had Anthony Mantha over there on that second line right wing spot. Yeah, I'll take Tom Wilson.
Anthony Mantha has made me sadder than many players. I really wanted him to be so good. I wanted him to be good.
Well, that's where he was. They had him on that second line with Kuzi. So I think that this is a number one. It's a big step up for Kuznetsov. Number one, with Tom Wilson being there, and having Kuzi and Dylan Strome, who we also have been talking about a lot lately. Dylan Strome playing very well lately. I like that second line.
Tell you what, Anthony Mantha was a healthy scratch yesterday, boys. And
he sucks.
He said it was a wake up call. He said it was a wake up call. Let's see if he hits snooze or if he actually wakes up on this one. But,
a wake up call? It's been years.
I mean, right now it's him versus Sonny Milano, and Sonny Milano is winning.
And Sonny Milano is playing.
Yeah. You know what I'm looking at here on the Washington Capitals? They have a lot of heavy hitters. Tom Wilson, Garnett Hathaway, Marty Favari. There's Nick Jensen even. There are some hitters on this team. All right, Kirby Reichel in Chicago is going to remain with the team as Patrick Kane stays on the shelf for quote-unquote maintenance. So with this one, there's kind of like big quotes for that one. Big quotes.
Oh, yeah, he's been trying so hard this season.
Yeah. I mean, you got Lucas Reichel. He's technically on the top line, if you can call it that. It's Max Domi and Philip Kurashev. That's a top line, folks. That's an NHL top line. Are you interested at all in Lucas Reichel?
I think he already got his goal that he's going to get. And that's that for me. No, I'm not into it.
What, this season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in redraft, there's nothing there. Dynasty, obviously, you're excited. And I think he could make a fun-ish one-day stream. Like, if you're ballsy enough to spend an acquisition on a Chicago Blackhawk at this point and pick Lucas Reichel, I don't know. I feel like it's going to hit every once in a while, but not enough to, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just, there's not a lot there. Anyway, we'll talk about Patrick Kane when he gets traded, because we could spend 20 minutes talking about how cool it would be if he traded here, if he got traded there.
He's got to get traded, right? He has to.
Yeah. Boston, Edmonton. Like, there's so many fun places for him to go.
They have so many UFAs coming up next year, too. I mean, obviously, we know Patrick Kane, UFA next year. Johnny Tace, UFA next year. Max Domi, Andreas Athanasiou. Those last two, those are depth pieces that could work on another team, especially Athanasiou.
They're going to have money to spend. But before we get down that fucking rabbit hole, let's finish up these storylines so we can get into the playoffs. Kyle Connor and David Pastrnak both pot hat tricks. And I wanted to highlight Kyle Connor here, who's got 18 goals in his last 26 games. Won his first 14 games with 2 goals. A lot of people were worried. I hope you bought low because he has turned on the Jets.
Oh, my.
Not funny!
All right, playoff breakdown, guys. We put that poll out on Twitter, Reddit, Discord. We got over 200 votes and the most popular playoff formats. We can't do everybody's, but we got the 3 most popular. The most popular, which is the same as our listener leagues, were weeks 21 through 23, March 13th through April 2nd. Second most popular, 22 to 24, and third was 20 to 22. So we're going to start off with the most popular weeks 21 through 23. The teams with the best schedules are, drum roll, Roger, I don't know if you got a drum roll sound effect. Boston, they got the most games played. They got 12 games played in those 3 weeks with an average of 4 games played per week. They only have 2 off nights. So do you take quantity or do you take Colorado, who has just 1 game less, but they have 8 off nights?
You need to do that. I mean, if I was going to have a tip of the week, that would be it. You need to do both. That's one thing. You need to make sure, right? If you end up with all of your players having off nights, then you're stacked up on off nights and not on heavy nights. So the main thing is to have a balance in what total games played per week is the goal, right? So sometimes I see people like dropping a guy because he has an off night when they weren't actually losing a game on a heavy night. So you're just making a move not to get ahead. So as long as you work it out so that you're able to make use of guys, I think you want a mix of off nights, and you got to have players playing on the heavy nights too.
Well, that's why it's so great setting your lineup. Like TJ likes to set his lineup for the entire week. So that way you can take a look at things and say, oh, well, I'm not using Claude Giroux at all. Like I'm just throwing him out there as he's the first name that popped in my head.
Player X.
Player X. I'm not using Player X for, all 3 of these heavy nights. They're on the bench. That means that they are either like good to be dropped. Now, I'm not saying drop Claude Giroux. That's not what I mean. We're talking about
drop
Player X now.
Yep.
Player X.
On Team X.
If Player X is constantly on your bench and you're not getting anything for them, maybe they're not good enough to be on your team. If you're constantly pushing them down to the bench. So that's why I love TJ's whole idea of setting your lineup ahead of time, because you can see what players you're using and what players you're not.
And now's a perfect time to go through, maybe not now, but like you got some time over the All-Star break where you can go through your playoff weeks and set those lineups and see who's rotten on your bench. And right there, you got your drops, and then you're picking up players on Colorado and Boston and Toronto and Buffalo, the teams that have good schedules during weeks 21 through 23. And you're maximizing your games played. You want guys playing. So go through ahead of time, and that's why we're doing this. We want to plan ahead. We're not telling you guys go out and make the moves now. It's just kind of like putting something in the back of your mind. Maybe you can make some moves right now, because Boston, like when we get into it, right now is the perfect time, I think, to buy Jake DeBrusk. He's hurt. He was playing really well. Maybe somebody needs those points. Like if you're comfortable having somebody on your IR and giving up something for a Jake DeBrusk, I think this is that could be a really smart play.
I just wanted to say, like we keep saying, you can set your lineups way in advance. You don't have to actually set every day. I think most people know, but in Yahoo, there's a set the whole week button for each week. Just do that, and you can see your whole week. Fantrax actually has the thing where you can just say set till the end of the season.
They just, I feel you don't actually choose who's on your bench though when you do that.
No. It does 90% of the work for you is what it does. And then you go and adjust each day as opposed to setting each day from scratch. So that's a good one. Fantrax now has the option to just set till the end, like for a whole date range. So you can just set to the end of the season with one button. And then, yeah, you need to check. Don't make sure they're not benching Connor McDavid on you or something like that. But at least like the majority of your layout's done, and you can see where you have, say your right wing always ends up some right wing always ends up on the bench. Then you should be pretty quickly looking to drop or trade a right wing. But yeah, it's quite simple to look ahead. It's not as much work as it sounds like.
Boston, Colorado. To me, Colorado's the best schedule. Like they got just one game short of Boston, who has the most games played, but they have those 8 off nights. And to your point, Raj, I think like it'll be really hard to stack off nights just through Colorado, who has probably the best schedule. I think through these playoffs, like I don't know, you might have to try really hard. But Toronto's, they've got 5 off nights with 11 games played. So just 3 off nights short of Colorado. Buffalo has the second most off nights with 7, but they're 2 games short of the lead. So they have 10 games, 7 off nights. And I don't know, like to me, I prefer the off nights to the actual games played, unless the target was like a high-end player from Buffalo. If you're thinking like Tage Thompson or Darlene, because those are the guys that you're going to be playing on your heavy nights. Like if you go out and get like a Jeff Skinner or, a Dylan Cousins or one of like the kind of like B-list guys that are in Buffalo, they might wind up on your bench on the heavy nights. So, I mean, now is actually playing pretty good. So maybe he makes it, but
I still can't hear you. You're breaking up.
We are breaking up. That's what's happening because Jeff Skinner's fucking doing his thing. Yeah, he's on a bit of a cold streak right now, but he's still on a 91-point pace. I can't believe a 91-point pace will not take the Jeff Skinner taste out of your mouth. This is ridiculous.
I can't do it.
You don't have to like him just because he's getting points. You don't have to like him.
It fucking helps, though. It should. All right. So if you're in weeks 21 through 23, Boston, Colorado, Toronto, Buffalo, those are the teams that we've targeted that have the better schedules. The teams that have the worst schedules, the teams that the players you should be looking at selling, maybe like high-end players from these bad teams for high-end, or even like take a step back because you're gaining off nights, you're gaining games played. All in all, it might be like 5 off nights and 3 games played, but you can take that, maybe take like a little bit of a hit. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Do you guys have better words for what I'm trying to say?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yeah, okay. So I think that this is what you're trying to say. So say you want to get Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen, one of the best players on Colorado. It's going to take a lot to get him away from somebody. So it's got to be worth their while. So I'm saying, say I have Braden Point and Chandler Stevenson, and I try to trade them for Mikko Rantanen, and I'm losing that trade, correct? Just by you put it into any trade generator you can find, they're going to say you lose that trade by $1 million. But what I'm doing is I'm losing Braden Point, who doesn't have a great playoff schedule, and I'm losing Chandler Stevenson, who doesn't have a great playoff schedule. Now, these are 2 players that combined have a ton more points than Mikko Rantanen. But what I'm going to do is supplement that with pickups at that time. I open up a spot to stream players, and I get a fantastic player, the second best player on that team, to take into the playoffs with me, and I still have a keeper.
We're into the point of the season where like I feel like it's easier to stream in the beginning of the season because you're not really attached to anybody. And now we're in the point of the season where all of our streamers, we've kind of vetted all of the waiver wire. And now all of our streamers have turned into long-term holds. Guys like, I don't know, Eric Carlson might have gotten picked up off the waiver wire. There are guys, Tage Thompson was either a late round pick or he was picked up off 8-team leagues waiver wires and shit like that. Like guys that you have, you didn't draft, have turned into like holds, and now you don't have that waiver wire spot.
But just as well as I do that new streamers happen all year long.
For sure.
There's always new people that are going to come out of the woodwork, and in mid-March they're going to be kicking tits, and they're going to be your guys that might not even be doing it right now.
As the season progresses, though, is what I'm trying to say is like as the season progresses, it's harder to drop the guys that you picked up a month ago because they just keep hitting. And that's what like all season we've been talking, all right, keep an eye on Brandon Hagel because he's still doing the fucking thing. And like a lot of people aren't dropping him. But when you see Tampa Bay, they've only got 10 games and 1 off night. It's kind of one of the bottom tier playoff things. You can trade a Brandon Hagel in a piece for something with some of the other teams, which I haven't even mentioned yet. The worst schedules in weeks 21 through 23. San Jose, Vegas, Tampa, Philly, and Seattle. So you take like a Brandon Hagel or Braden Point in your example and pair it with, I don't know, San Jose. Maybe you can do like Erik Karlsson just because I don't trust him yet because he hasn't been out for 15 games yet, which happens every single year. So, maybe you get out from under Erik Karlsson. You trade him and then you get somebody from Boston, Colorado, Toronto, Buffalo, somebody that fits your schedule a little bit more. And a lot of what I'm trying to say kind of fits more for points leagues just because like any player is just as good as any other player as long as they're getting points. Again, if you're in a banger league, just make sure you're understanding the balance of your team and your categories. And, you could go ahead and trade an Erik Karlsson and a Brandon Hagel. You're giving up a lot of points. And if you're going to acquire a hitter, like, are you tilting the scales of your categories at that point? So just like be kind of cognizant. And that's another reason we put this channel up in the Discord. So for playoff prep. And yeah, so the worst teams, 9 games, 1 off night. That's San Jose and Vegas. 10 games, 1 off night. Tampa and Philly. 9 games played, 2 off nights. Seattle. So the guys that we are looking at for weeks 21 through 23, we're going to start off with Colorado. And I think Valeri Nichushkin is probably the most affordable piece that's also going to be impactful. Because you can go out and get a Mikko Rantanen. You can go out and get a Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. Those guys are going to cost you. Whereas like a Val Nichushkin is going to be important. And he's going to play those off nights and he's going to play the games and he's going to be an important right winger. The most recent news that we got from him is that he didn't travel with the team. And to me, the fact that was news, like the option was on the table that he could have traveled with the team. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but maybe he's close. Maybe now is a really good time to buy. He's playing right wing, was playing on the top power play. I feel like he is probably the most affordable guy that we can go out there for Val Nichushkin.
And he's going to slot right into that top 6 too. And I think the same can be said about Arturi Lehkonen, who's only 59% right now. So you can go out and pick him up.
Go even pick him up. Shit, yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I wish he shot more, but 2.5 shots per game, not too bad. And I also think that he is going to be straight up slotted into that top 6, even when players start coming back. In his last 5 games, Arturi Lehkonen, over 23 minutes time on ice. That's huge. That's big time. So they're leaning on him, giving him a much bigger piece of the pie. So I like Lehkonen a lot. And then we can't forget Evan Rodriguez, too. He's only 11% owned. Now, he was just away for 2 games. But in his last 5 games, he has 2 goals and 5 assists with 3.5 shots on goal in that span. Evan Rodriguez is a big one here for me. Yeah,
and with that hot streak, he's worth it right now. You don't have to wait till the playoffs. Like he's
super
riding.
hot right now. I like all those guys personally. I like if he could trade for Nichushkin, I think he is going to have a huge playoff. I think gut take wise, I really feel like he's going to come back very, very strong. Lehkonen, I would pick up if you can pick him up, but I'm not like he is the one guy who's definitely in the top 6, but he's a short way from a lot less ice time. And one thing he's survived on lately is 24 minutes a night, and he's definitely going to be a long way away from that. I mean, him and Rodriguez both.
Crushing shorthanded? Oh my God, 6 minutes of power play time in his last game. So he's chugging power play time. 6 minutes against Vegas too.
Sounds awesome.
He's getting it. The rest of the guys that we have here, like JT Compher, I think you added in here, Zach, Eric Johnson, Sam Girard. These are guys we could probably stream in, come playoff time too.
Well, yeah, they're just guys that I wanted to throw out there. I mean, Eric Johnson and Sam Girard are definitely going to be more banger options. Eric Johnson taking tons of shots on goal right now. He has 0 points in his last 5 games, but he has 3 shots on goal per game in that span. I love it. And Sam Girard is just a player that, he's getting you bangs, he's getting you blocks and stuff like that. He could get you points. But I mean, at only 9%, he's a viable D-man, especially on those off nights. If you're looking for bangs on those days, he's a good guy to pick up.
Next best team here is Boston, where obviously you want to make a play for a Pasternak or Bergeron or Marchand if you can, and to go through every single trade player for player. Like if we give you examples, we're gonna get 100 messages tomorrow. Well, like, oh well, he doesn't have this guy, and we can't do all that. So you guys, go out and try and get those guys if you can, right? But the guys that you can target. Zach, I think you got some guys right here.
The guy,
our favorite
guy right here.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't understand, and I do, but like at the same time, David Krejci, 24% owned. It doesn't seem to waver, that percentage ownership. I get that he's not a huge hits and blocks guy, but man, he's just under a point per game, which is amazing. It's amazing. He is not a point who you would think would be a point per game player. He is just under it. I wish he got that top power play spot, which has Taylor Hall on it right now. But in all honesty, Krejci is better on points so far through this season than Hall is, and does the same on hits and blocks. He's just not on that top power play. And it's not like Hall is killing it on the top power play either.
Well, Krejci has like double the power play points that Hall does. So, I mean, that's probably due to a lot of injuries, guys missing out and stuff. But I had to go and check that number was correct again, because 24% for a guy with that point pace and consistency is ridiculous. You wouldn't pick him up for peripherals, but he's more than half of one a game. Like he's not like, Quinn Hughes territory or anything like that. So it seems silly, but he's exactly the kind of player that I would actually, like, I value him. I wouldn't look at that 24% and leave him on the waiver wire, because he's one of the guys that everyone's going to be trying to get leading into this. I mean, you obviously have to make the playoffs to compete in the playoffs, but he's a guy I would even reach a week or two early for, because, man, he's not going to slow down. He never does.
Well, if he's been point per game this whole time, if you're in a points league like Krejci is, man, I wish somebody would have told us about him sooner. Like,
yeah.
Why haven't we been talking about Krejci this whole year? This is ridiculous.
For 3 years or whatever.
That's right, we have.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
I almost forgot.
And then, like you said, Taylor Hall is kind of like an option. One guy that I brought up at kind of the top of the show is Jake DeBrusk. And I think if you're comfortable and the JDB owner in your league is maybe he's in trouble, so maybe you send him a player that's not hurt. And then you can stash Jake DeBrusk on your bench or in your IR or whatever. Because DeBrusk was having a hell of a season. And with the playoff schedule that Boston's got, like, he's going to be one of the more important players going into this playoffs. Just volume of games played. And he's even one of those guys that you kind of got to fit into your schedule just because he's given you the reasons to fit him into the schedule. So I'm a big fan of Jake DeBrusk. I think right now is exactly his lowest point, his lowest buy point, whatever. He's wholesale right now.
Yeah, and you said, you have to fit him into your lineups, and he's dual eligible now, which is helpful for that, right?
You just have to really hope that he comes back in time.
He is on long-term IR, so, yeah, we'll see.
I mean, in all honesty, they may just keep him out until the playoffs. The real life actual playoff.
Yeah, I don't think they're too worried about missing the playoffs at this point.
Boston's kicking
That's what I'm saying. So they might hold him out until the playoffs because they don't need him to play. That's all I'm getting at.
A good old fashioned Kucherov.
All right. Next team is Toronto, and a lot of a lot of Toronto is just kind of self-explanatory. You want to go for the big guys, right? But outside of that, there's a couple options worth having. I'm a big fan of Morgan Riley at this point. I think if you're an Erik Karlsson owner, maybe you go out and get a Morgan Riley. See if you can't get a plus in there too, to fill up your playoff schedule. So I think that's one way to go at. Yeah.
I like the idea of what you just said. I know we're not trying to get into specifics, but as a really good example, if you had Karlsson, they got a bad schedule, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you could off Karlsson for maybe something for like a Riley and a Bunting, or a Riley, and get him to throw in a Yarncroke and see if he pans out. But I had those couple of guys down. I mean, everyone knows about Bunting. He's up to 70% now. But, I mean, if you're talking major trades, I think we all know who you're after. But he's available in some leagues, and you could probably pick him up for not very much. A couple things, right? Like he is literally attached to Matthews at 5-on-5, 100% of the time with Matthews.
He's next man up on the power play too. I know. Yeah, he doesn't get any right now, like you're about to say, but he has always been next man up.
Yeah, if something's not working and they need to switch to 2 power plays, or if somebody gets injured, he's the next man up for sure. And I was looking at his stat pattern over the last couple of years, and like last year's obviously his breakout, and he significantly increased his points per game pace in the end of the season, even though he was playing with basically the same guys. And he's done that every year. So like a little bit of Fiala syndrome. So, logically that means he's going to have a better third and fourth quarter this year. I don't know if you could read that far into it, but he does seem to pick it up a little bit at the end of each year. Like last year was pretty significant. And, you might be able to just get him. Some leagues, I bet if you're in and around Toronto, you will not be able to get Michael Bunting. But if you're out in Vancouver, where everyone hates Toronto, maybe you can you can pick him up at a good price.
Specific scenarios.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about William Nylander? He's having his best season ever. On a bit of a cold streak right now. Nothing in his last 3 games. So like as cold as his season's going to get, this could be the most buy low time for William Nylander. I'm not saying it's going to be like at a huge discount or anything, but maybe on a micro level. He might be a little cheaper. And in terms of like the big guys, he's obviously, well, maybe Tavares at this point, but he's not a Matthews. He's not a Marner. He's the William Nylander.
He's that second level player. And we've talked about him multiple times on the Hot Guy check-in for, on top of the fact that he's just a hot guy. So he's had a great season thus far, over a point per game, damn near exactly a point per game last year. And that's the whole thing. And I think you bring up a great point. He's not that A-list player. You know what I mean? He's more of he's a B player. He just is, or at least on that team. Now, could he be better than that? Yeah, maybe. But I mean, he is always going to be in the, he's always going to be behind Matthews, Marner, and Tavares. It's just the way it is.
Perception wise, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge deal. You're not going to get Matthews, even though, Nylander has more goals and is dual eligible. Like he's not Matthews, but he's really statistically not very far behind him right now. And you're going to get him, like you said, at a B grade price, as opposed to like the most elite couple of players, right? Marner and Matthews, you're going to have a hard time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Next up is Buffalo. We talked about it. You can go for a Dahlin, you can go for a Tage Thompson, but there's a couple guys that you can still pick up at this point. You got Dylan Cousins highlighted here. I put in, I know Zach's not going to talk about him, and I think Jeff Skinner, a lot of people might have that same mentality as Zach does right now, where it's like, Jeff Skinner, gross. But he's on a heater this year, man.
I think I'm
low name value, low trust factor, and he's a high impact player right now, and he's got shots and he's got goals. And with Buffalo's schedule, I think all those things come in handy.
If you blanked out his name,
yeah. If I told you there was somebody out there that has 17 goals, 22 points, 22 assists, 39 points in 37 5 games, shooting
Yeah.
over 3 times a game, you'd be like, oh my God, who is it? And I'd be like, oh, it's Jeff Skinner. And you'd be like, oh, fuck, never mind.
His numbers are better than Nylander, who I was just gushing over. But
No, they're tied, aren't they? They're tied in
In le-
points per game.
oh, at points per game, yes, they are. So
Yeah.
fair enough.
Oh,
But
I
it's
like Nylander so much better.
exactly. I think honestly, in all truthfulness, in that comparison, I think Nylander's a little more reliable, maybe, but Skinner is so much better than our emotions are saying right now. That's for sure. But no, I think Zach and I have both been talking about Dylan Cousins a bunch for all of December, and I think everybody has. But Cousins is still available. And man, he's like point per game solid all season long. So I don't see Tage Thompson and him getting split up or slowing down.
That's it for weeks 21 through 23. There are a couple guys that are worth selling. So weeks 21 through 23, those bad teams that we were talking about, San Jose, Vegas, Tampa, Philly, Seattle. Let's talk about the guys we're not selling from these teams. I think there's a good amount of, anybody that's not talked about, you can go for it. But like San Jose, I'll probably keep Timo Meier. Vegas, I'll probably keep Jack Eichel. I don't know how I feel about Shea Theodore. I know he's like not playing right now, but Alex Pietrangelo.
I mean, obviously you're keeping EK65 too, obviously.
No, I would sell him. I would sell him just because he hasn't gotten hurt yet. And I feel like, in terms of sell high, he might be the best player to go out and get.
Okay, I thought you were talking about dropping. Like,
oh, no,
once
no, no,
it
no,
gets
no.
down to
Sell.
it, I'm down to drop a Tomas, or I'm down to drop everybody except Timo Meier and Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
But if you're trading away Erik Karlsson, I'm down.
I would keep Timo Meier, but I would try to trade Erik Karlsson. Everybody else is worth dropping. Vegas is like Jack Eichel and the goalies, and those are the only players I would keep.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like Chando, Marchessault, those would be good sells. You could probably sell a Mark Stone because just like Erik Karlsson, like he's due for his big injury this year. I don't know.
I would sell any of these players on Vegas. I would sell anyone
Jack Eichel even?
on Vegas.
I would be selling those guys, but I'd be straight up dropping like Riley Smith, McNabb, Willie K, Martinez, any of those like role players. I don't know if I'd straight up drop Chando, but I would be sadly.
Yeah, I'm not dropping Chandler Stevenson.
I see you put a sad face emoji. I was going to say exactly that. I would sadly try to trade him, but yeah.
I feel like the value is there, and you're doing yourself a service by getting rid of a Vegas player. Tampa.
The only way I feel like you're dropping Chandler Stevenson is when you get down to those, those weeks and you're like, okay, there is no tomorrow kind of shit. I will drop anybody I fucking need to.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, you know what? John Tavares is not one of my keepers. I will drop him if I have to, just to be able to have a chance to play next week. Because that's what you got to do. And Chandler Stevenson would be the same, but I would be trying to sell any of these players right now. Every single one of them. I would be selling every single one of them. And that's including Logan Thompson.
I would hold on to Jack Eichel. That's what I would do, personally.
Yeah.
I think the ceiling is pretty high. In Tampa, the guys that I'm keeping are, I feel like Point would be a good sell, but also like I wouldn't mind keeping him at the same time. Like I'm not pushing him out the door. I'm definitely keeping, Hedman, a Kucherov, a Stamkos. Those are guys I'm keeping. Everybody else is on the table. I feel like Hagel has some value right now. All right, Philadelphia. Do we keep Konechny or do we sell high?
I'm keeping him.
Sell. I'm personally selling all these players in these bad teams are like bad. Well, number one, a lot of these bad schedules are bad teams in general. I mean, San Jose, not a good team. I'm not worried about keeping those players. Philadelphia, the only one rosterable long term, well, other than Carter Hart, is Konechny, and this is definitely a sell high situation.
Sure. If you're really selling high, then obviously anybody's on the table if you're selling high. But Konechny, if you could get full, 95-point pace value for him, then yes.
And that's going to be hard to match up with like good playoff teams and somebody worth buying. Like, TK for William Nylander, right?
Then, yep.
Yeah. I mean, you can add a couple games, but like TK is on such a heater right now and has been for the entire season to the point where it's like, all right, do I value 2 or 3 extra games? Like, does TK do the same damage in 9 games as Nylander will do in 11? And you got to kind of weigh those things. At the end of the day, it's only 2 extra games.
The only real positive you have on the whole connecting thing is that he's a right winger. And that's really helping you out on those heavy nights, considering they play on all heavy nights. Like their games in those playoff weeks, they're heavy night games. So you might be keeping him in your lineup for the sole fact is he's a right winger. It's not like he's, a strict C where you can find things somewhere else.
He's not having a benchable year. You can't bench him at this point too.
No, and I'm saying, that's what I said. The only thing is that you don't even really have to worry about that since he is a right winger.
Seattle, somebody wrote "fuck them all."
Yeah, that was me.
And I think that's right.
That was me.
Yeah, sell them all. Maybe you can get. I don't know how much value you could get out of those guys. Like maybe a Martin Jones, you might be able to sell because he's having a good year. But like Burakovsky's super cold right now. He's the only like really point per game player. So I don't know. You'll be all right. You'll be all right without him.
Actually, Adam Larson has gone up in ownership.
if you're
but they're all just fodder. They're all just fodder right now. And I mean, Burakovsky is the only one with real name recognition that you might be able to get something for.
We got 15/20 minutes to get through weeks 22, 24, and 2022. Luckily, there's a lot of overlap. 22 to 24, Colorado shows up again. So all of the guys that we talked about in Colorado, go for them. But what's interesting is Arizona and Edmonton kind of pop up here. And what's nice about Arizona is everybody you can go fucking pick up. Like Nick Schmaltz is out there. He's 22% rostered. I don't know. Jacob Chikrin is such a risky move because is he still on Arizona come fantasy playoffs?
Yeah,
we don't know.
I think he probably no, actually. I don't think he is there. I don't know. We don't know. Like you can go out and buy him now, but then maybe he shows up on one of those teams that doesn't have a good playoff schedule. So I don't know.
Raj, I posed the idea that it's actually Shane Gostisbehere that gets moved and not Jacob Chikrin.
I wouldn't be surprised if they both go and one of them ends up in St. Louis.
It's Chikrin to Pittsburgh is what's going to happen.
I hate that. I hate that so much. No,
sorry.
I don't trust Ron Hextall to make good moves. He already got Jeff Petrie, so he's done. Arizona, you can go out and you can pick up a Nick Schmaltz, and like I would pick him up now.
Still schmaltzing.
Those playoff weeks, I don't mind picking him up now. He's good, and he always schmaltzes, so he'll be fine.
Still point per game.
Yeah. And then Edmonton. What I like right now is that there was some news today about Evander Kane, who is going to be back rumored to be back by the All-Star break. He's 86% rostered right now, hanging out on a lot of people's IRs, and Yahoo does not have news on him being potentially back soon. So go out, try and buy an Evander Kane because he could be very, very low, and he could be back in 2 weeks. Then there's like RNH. You can go after a Barry. I mean, you could probably try to make a pitch for, a Draisaitl or a McDavid, but I think you're going to cripple yourself so bad trying to buy those guys that you're doing more damage than good. Just to add fucking 2 games. Just to add 2 games to your playoffs, you're selling fucking 6 people.
That's a huge point. A huge point to all this stuff is, like I said earlier, you only get to compete in the playoffs if you make the playoffs. So careful.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why in true William Nylander fashion, I think you go after the B player here And I think you got to look at Zach Hyman. He doesn't have that name recognition, but he is having a fantastic season. And with them having a good schedule, when it gets down to it, I think Zach Hyman is the guy to trade for.
He's got 44 points in 40 games. Zach Hyman is above 8 points per game. He's shooting, he's hitting, he's doing Zach Hyman stuff. He's got 17 power play points.
He has one less shot than Connor McDavid. He is shooting.
Wow,
but
he
when
does.
you think of
Look
the
at that.
Edmonton Oilers, Zach Hyman isn't on your lips until well down the list.
Yeah, like get real down there, and then he's on my lips. You know what I'm saying? All right, I've had too many beers. We got to wrap this up.
Inappropriate.
All right. Yeah, that was inappropriate. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. All right, so that's weeks 22 and through 24. The bad teams there. Yeah, there's quite a few, but they are all bad teams. Well, not all of them, but like a lot of them are really bad teams. San Jose, Columbus, Montreal. There's your bad teams. But then there's Vegas and Tampa Bay. These are teams that we talked about in the 21 through 23 as well. So if you're in the 22 to 24 range, you're still looking at selling a Brandon Hagel. You're dropping everybody from Montreal. Maybe you hang on to a Nick Suzuki, but now's the perfect time to sell him. Actually, it's not a perfect time because he's on a fucking biblical cold streak, but I don't know. Yeah, you'll get nothing for him. But like, I don't know if you can get something. Carolina, Philadelphia, St. Louis have 11 games, one off night. So that's like kind of middle of the road. But yeah, the rest of the teams, bad. All right. So weeks 20 through 22, we're looking at a lot of the same teams here. Buffalo, Colorado, and strangely enough, Anaheim's popping its head up here. And Nashville. Nashville's got the most games played, but they have 4 off nights to like Buffalo and Colorado 6 with 11 games played. So we're looking at Buffalo, those guys again. Colorado, those guys again. Nashville. Is there anybody worth buying in Nashville? I know there's not a ton of trust there right now, but like, the tried and true guys are still doing their thing. Roman Yossi's got 31 points in 38 games. It's not, his type of season. Philip Forsberg, he's got 34 points in 38 games. Like those are the guys that I would try to buy.
I mean, UC Saros had been going off.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I forgot about goaltenders completely.
Nashville is back to what they were supposed to be. We briefly talked about this last episode, right? Like the last year was such an anomaly for Nashville, and now they're right back to everyone's sub point per game. Yossi's the only one who's doing okay. Yeah, it's just I don't know what was going on in Nashville last year.
They're playing good. The power play hit.
It was ridiculous. Like Tanner Jeannot, what did he have? Like 20-something goals last year. He's got 3. Like Duchesne has 11. He's on pace for like 20 goals this year again.
Tanner Jeannot has 8 points. Holy fuck. Yeah, that was a hard fall, eh?
Everything is different in Nashville. So because of that, they're so unsexy. Like everyone knows about Yossi, but you might be able to slide something cheap for a Forsberg or something like that. And he's gonna be big coming into the end of the season.
Well, there's Parsonen guys coming out of nowhere. They've had Juuso Parsonen on the top line out of nowhere, exactly, and he's like 3 hits a game. He's got 5 assists in 6 games. Thomas Novak also kind of popping his head out of nowhere, doing a little bit of offensive stuff. But together, they're barely like if you add those 2 guys together, time on ice, Roman Josi still playing more, like almost playing more minutes than both of those guys. Novak's like 11 minutes, and Parsonen's like 14 and a half.
No offense to you guys, but I am not in the mood to rest my playoffs and my possible being out for the entire year after working hard for everything by trading for Philip Forsberg and fucking hoping it works out. No offense, but I'm not doing that.
I mean, we were trying pretty hard to say something like optimistic here. Like I like Forsberg.
I know you do. I don't hate Forsberg either, but I'm not gonna trade. He's not gonna be the main, he's not going to be my trade deadline pickup guy that I think is going to help me, really turn the tide in the playoffs. I'm not resting my playoff hopes on him or anybody from Nashville at all, or Anaheim.
Well, you wouldn't be in the playoffs if your team's resting on a Forsberg. That's not the case. But I mean, he has a less points per game by a lot than like Nick Schmaltz. So I wouldn't want him in that. But if he's a guy you could maybe get, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And there's like a bunch of guys that, if you're in a super deep league, you can look at, fucking Yakov Trenin, fucking Nino Niederreiter or whatever. But I don't know. In those weeks, the bad teams, let's fucking look at that. It's going to be a lot of the same teams. Montreal, Philadelphia, Seattle, Tampa Bay. Oh, Dallas. Dallas coming out of nowhere. But it's not so bad. They're like, yeah, it's not too bad. Florida, New York Islanders, they have 3.5-ish games, whatever.
So pretty much, I think the main tip of this playoff preview is get to the playoffs number one, and you know what I mean. Don't cut your own
and
nose
buy
off
Colorado
to
and
spite your
Buffalo,
face, and do whatever you can to get this really good playoff team ready, and then you miss out.
Yeah,
then you look like an asshole. So obviously, do everything that you got to do to make it to the playoffs. But if you have the space, yes, you should definitely be picking up players that are going to have good schedules, and try to take advantage of those GMs that don't know the playoff schedule. You know what I mean? If they don't know that, say your Colorado team, your Colorado and stuff like that are going to be that great, and they're like, oh, Braden Point, he's really good. Yeah, try to move off your crappy team schedules and get on these good ones, because there's other people that aren't looking ahead.
But it's important to stay within the same tier, I think, too, because when we start getting into playoff planning and things like that, there are a lot of people out there who forget names and production and things like that just to add 2 games to their schedule. And I think that's kind of an underlying tone I've been trying to push out during this episode is, you can make these trades, but ultimately all you're doing is adding 1 or 2 games to your playoff. And yeah, it does help, and off nights are gonna help, but don't, to steal from Zach here, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. Like, make smart trades, fill out your team, keep everything kind of in the same tier in terms of value and player talent and all of that. But, don't blindly go for games played, please.
That's the thing too. Don't also, in the other direction, don't blindly go for off nights just because you hear that off nights are good to have. What off nights are good to have if they're increasing your games played and you're not detracting from the guys you already have. Yeah. Like sometimes I was talking to somebody in our Discord today, actually, and it was exactly that. And I had to talk him down out of a trade because he was like, we started talking about it, and like 2 seconds in, he's like, "Oh, I realized I just wanted to make a trade." So you're making all these moves, you end up with this. Yeah. So just make sure. That's all. There's no one single magic factor that's going to answer all of the questions. So just make sure you
just go out there and get good players.
Yeah, exactly. Trade Nick Paul up for Draisaitl, and you should be
That's one way to win a league. All right, boys and girls, that's it for this episode. As we said at the top of the show, you can hit us up on Twitter at FHF Hockey if you got questions to further this episode. And there's the Fantasy Hockey Discord with the brand spanking new playoff prep channel that you can pop in, and we can talk more about it. If tomorrow I got time and I'm not on my way to Paris or something, I'll make like a chart that'll help you guys through your playoffs. So we'll talk to you next time. We got the weekend preview coming out on Thursday. So until then, we love yous.
Love yous.
Love you.